The mountain guides of the German Bundeswehr. They are among the best elite units worldwide for operations in high-altitude terrain. To survive in these regions, they must complete one of the toughest training programs in the Bundeswehr. Temperatures reach -30 degrees Celsius, wind speeds soar to 120 kilometers per hour, and they operate on peaks up to 5,000 meters.
I think they'll be relieved when this is over. I doubt they're really enjoying it here.
In the next 9 months, these men must climb the equivalent altitude of summiting Mount Everest 10 times. Their motto, at any time of year, in any terrain, on rock, ice, and snow, in peace and in action. The guiding principle of their actions is to always be able to stand proud before themselves. However, to be accepted into this elite unit, soldiers must endure a demanding path ahead. Here, the journey for the soldiers begins at the foot of the Alps. In the picturesque town of Mittenwald lies the Karwendel Barracks, home to the Army mountain guides. Under the shadow of towering mountains, the elite unit is trained at the Mountain and Winter Warfare School. But first, they must pass a grueling aptitude test. Training Director Lieutenant Colonel Grillhosel welcomes the soldiers.
Herr Oberstleutnant, melde Hörsaal 1 mit 18 Mann angetreten.
Jawohl. Guten Morgen, Hörsaal 1.
Guten Morgen, Herr Oberstleutnant.
Augen gerade aus. Hörsaal 1, rührt euch. Ausbilder, bitte austreten. So, ich darf Sie recht herzlich begrüßen hier zur Überprüfungswoche des HBF-Lehrganges im Mittenwald. Ich wünsche Ihnen viel Erfolg für diese Woche. In dieser Woche wird sich zeigen, ob Sie die nächsten 8 Monate mit uns gemeinsam die Heeresbergführerausbildung durchschreiten werden. Uns gemeinsam meine ich, und dazu möchte ich vorstellen, die Ausbilder. Das sind die Ausbilder Hauptfeldwebel Rauschenberger, Hauptfeldwebel Rieger und Hauptfeldwebel Schubert. Mit mir gemeinsam, wir sind das Kernausbilderteam der Heeresbergführerausbildung.
18 soldiers were nominated by their units, as this is the only way to reach the assessment week. Among them, there is only one female applicant. One of these candidates is 31-year-old Captain Jan Schumacher.
Fulfilling a lifelong dream would come true for me if I passed the mountain guide course. I've been in the Bundeswehr for 10 years now, working alongside Army mountain guides for a while, and I set this goal for myself years ago.
The applicants, however, must bring a great deal with them.
Climbing is a must. Skiing is a must. Physical fitness is a must too. Character suitability is crucial. Walking with crampons. These qualities must be brought along. Here we're training mountain guides, not mountaineers.
Before the first tests begin, Grillhosel explains to the applicants what the coming days will entail.
Damit Sie wissen, was auf Sie zukommt. Also wir werden überprüfen, das ist einmal die Kondition, es ist das Klettern und es ist die Skitechnik. Und die Überprüfung dauert bis Freitag.
Staff Sergeant Slawomir Blos is among them. He is 29 years old, married, and has 2 children.
The mountain guide course isn't, let's say, a coffee drinker's course. You have to perform and prove yourself. Otherwise, anyone could do it.
The soldiers receive their climbing equipment in the so-called high-altitude chamber.
The soldiers are now receiving the gear they need to complete this week's assessment, ensuring they're fully equipped. The requirement is that they complete the assessment using standard issue equipment, meaning no personal carabiners, helmets, harnesses, or anything else. This is because the Bundeswehr often has higher safety standards compared to what is sold as civilian mountaineering equipment. So, in the end, each person receives a helmet, some sling material, a chest harness, and several carabiners to secure themselves.
He, too, aims to make it into the elite unit. Captain Peter Baumert recently became a father and has just returned from his deployment in Afghanistan.
Being accepted into the course and successfully completing it would essentially be the peak of my career and professional journey so far. First of all, just having the opportunity to do this is something special, especially as an officer. It's relatively challenging to get the chance to take a year away. For me, this is truly a dream come true.
The only female applicant is Master Sergeant Suzanne Weigel. She has invested a great deal in preparing for this assessment week.
I'd like to say that I consider myself quite athletic. And the idea of joining this course isn't something new for me. I've had this goal for 3 years now, and with the exception of my overseas deployment, I've been preparing for it for about 2.5 years.
Will this preparation suffice for her to become an Army mountain guide?
It doesn't work if someone joins the Army Mountain Guide course just to earn the badge and says, "Okay, I'll just get through it." That approach is doomed to fail.
I just have to see how it goes. It really is a challenge.
Before heading into the mountains, the soldiers first face less dramatic terrain. In the climbing gym, the instructors want to assess whether the applicants have the technical skills required to handle the real challenges in the mountains. The soldiers prepare for the first rigorous test. The tension is palpable, yet everyone remains optimistic for now.
Well, especially today with so many observers around, you do feel a bit nervous. Here in the gym, it's more of a training environment where you're just learning the technique. Out in unfamiliar terrain, there's a bit more tension. But when you know the route, it should be manageable.
Master Sergeant Jens Wagner from Mittenwald, at 39 years old, is the most experienced applicant. He was a Nordic combined athlete for the German Olympic team.
I've been interested in the Alpine field for a long time. I ski, go ski touring, and rock climb. At some point, you start wanting more. More perfection, more responsibility, or more knowledge. I'm still pretty eager to learn and wanted to combine the pleasant with the useful. And becoming a mountain guide here, it's a real treat. For me, I truly see it as a bonus, something incredible to even be allowed to pursue. You have to put yourself out there in advance just to be considered among the chosen few for this course. I also see it as a reward, a bonus on top, if you're lucky enough to experience the whole thing.
Ich beginne jetzt hier mit einer kurzen Einweisung, so was wir als Standards jetzt für diese Woche haben wollen beim Klettern. Es geht die Knoten, es geht dann später Anseilen für morgen mit Doppelseil und wie der Ablauf morgen in den Routen ist.
Everyone listens intently to Instructor Rauschenberger. Here, they learn what to focus on in the coming days. Safety techniques, in particular, are of utmost priority for the core training team. The chief is Lieutenant Colonel Grillhosel. With his 44 years of experience, he's a seasoned man in both the mountains and the Bundeswehr.
My position exists only once in the entire Bundeswehr. Everyone knows the leaders of the Army Mountain Guide training who have held this role at some point. It's a real challenge, and it especially forces you to stay fit yourself. I could be sitting in an office somewhere in Cologne or Bonn, but I'd much rather be doing this. But that's just how it is. The course participants are in their mid-20s or 30s, and I've got a few more years on me. But I still have them under control.
Ja, dann übergebe ich an den Chef, der sagt noch kurz an, welche Routen jetzt geklettert werden. Zu mir hier schauen.
I only want you to climb 2 routes. If you look at the wall, it's in the direction I'm pointing. The orange route that goes over the small overhang where Mr. Rauschenberger is standing. Use only the orange holds. And if we move a bit to the left, there's the red route that also goes over the overhang all the way to the top. These are the 2 routes you should climb.
All applicants are divided into pairs. One climbs while the other belays, a fundamental principle, both in the gym and later in the mountains. Master Sergeant Weigel and Master Sergeant Wagner form a team and discuss the route.
First and foremost, we're checking whether everything meets safety standards, particularly with the ropes, for those who want to stay in the course. Secondly, we focus on climbing technique. When you watch, you can see clear differences, whether it's done smoothly or looks more abrupt, relying heavily on strength. And also, here in the gym, we can clearly identify who is more experienced and who still needs practice.
With Weigel, it quickly becomes apparent that she's struggling with the designated routes. The instructors are skeptical. The first failed attempt.
Ein Versuch noch und dann. Ja.
But the next attempt also fails. Weigel has run out of strength and has to give up. Her disappointment is evident.
Yes, these routes. They're set very long here. You often find this in climbing gyms. They're designed based on body length. And if you're shorter, you're already at your maximum reach with everything. Trying to pull something from there is tough. To be honest, I just don't have the strength for it. The men mostly rely on power, and they can muscle their way up. But at some point, my strength just runs out, so I have to try climbing with technique. But that just didn't work in this case.
In the hall, everything is quite similar, but outside in nature, everything is fundamentally different in terms of technique. Some things don't appeal to you right away, perhaps because you've had bad experiences. Other things you like, and that's why it's a subjective matter. What's hard? What's easy? Well, I think it's much more fun outside because the variations are much greater.
Next up is Master Sergeant Bloss.
So the first week is definitely stressful because, well, for example, I worked for a year beforehand to get there. And then, of course, you want to stick with it and keep going.
Bloss approaches his route calmly and with focus. Under the strict gaze of the instructors, he delivers a solid performance. His preparations seem to have paid off. The other applicants still need to prove themselves and show that they can do it too.
It has to be said, of course, that the difficulty levels vary quite a bit from one climbing gym to another. There are gyms that only go up to 7 or 7+, and then I come here. And at the same difficulty level, I'm completely out of my depth. So the standards are quite different.
The routes aren't very long, so you can power through them with strength. But that's doable. These are the kind of routes you tackle regularly in a climbing gym.
The instructors keep a close eye on everyone. If mistakes are noticed here, they can still be corrected. In the mountains, that's not always an option. Grillhosel and his team of instructors seem quite satisfied. Few exceptionally strong candidates, but all are fairly solid.
Overall, I have to say I'm very satisfied. Of course, the excitement and tension are high at the beginning. You've worked towards this for years, and you realize that what you've trained for is paying off.
It's clear that some of the routes are beyond your current level. However, we're still in the gym. This has nothing to do with what we might climb in the Dolomites later on. It's simply meant to give us a first impression of how you move, how you approach challenges, and whether you consciously or unconsciously apply certain climbing techniques. Overall, I can say that the impression we got was actually quite satisfactory.
The next morning, it's finally time to head into the mountains. This is where the aspiring elite soldiers can and want to prove themselves. Under the leadership of instructors Rieger and Rauschenberger, they venture into the nearly 2,000-meter-high mountains of the Karwendel range near Mittenwald. Even the ascent to the testing grounds over rocky and steep terrain is exhausting and has the soldiers breaking a sweat. The weather is still good, but it can change very quickly.
Euer Aufenthaltsbereich mit den Rucksäcken von hier, von mir nach unten. Da sucht sich jeder einen Platz, wo er einen Rucksack vernünftig hinlegen kann. Dann Wechselwäsche an. Sag ich mal, die oberste Schicht ist wieder hier. Entweder Dienststehör Gore-Tex oder Feldhemd, dass wir da ein einheitliches Bild haben. Und dann sammeln wir nochmal hier vorne und machen genau einen Ablauf, wer die ersten Kletterer sind. Und dann habt ihr Zeit, eure Kletterausrüstung herrichten. Zeitansatz jetzt 3 Minuten, dass wir da vorne sammeln mit trockenen Klamotten.
The tension among the soldiers is palpable. Today, each of them must deliver top performance. Instructor Rauschenberger explains the test.
So, here's how we'll proceed. We start at the lower edge here, the mother edge. This is where Staff Sergeant Wagner begins. He's already familiar with it and will be given a stopwatch later to keep track. The goal is to climb up to the second anchor point, which is where the arrow flattens out for the first time. It's a prominent spot to the left near the cluster of mountain pines where the terrain turns brown at the top. In that area, he will find a ring bolt and set up the rappel route with his climbing rope. The goal is for every climber to place a mobile protection device at a spot that makes sense for them or where they feel it's necessary. The next lead climber will then remove it and place their own protection elsewhere. The belayer moves over immediately, and the third person ensures that the second rope is prepared at the base of the wall. Once the first climber has completed their route, we'll have the rappel route set up and one rope ready for continuous lead climbing. You can go get prepared now.
Clouds are rolling in. The candidates will have to climb under challenging conditions today.
Well, here in the Alpine climbing, we're now essentially focusing on ensuring that they can climb safely. It's not just about the athletic aspect, as it was in the gym yesterday, but rather the overall picture. This includes experience, an eye for the terrain, and finding the correct route, not just following the colorful holds anymore.
Yes, for me personally, Alpine climbing is much more enjoyable than indoor climbing. Of course, it's also because of the view. It's a completely different experience.
Wagner is a very experienced man in the mountains and fully aware of the dangers that rain can bring in this terrain. With focus and caution, he climbs the steep rock face meter by meter, always secured by his comrade Schumacher. Wagner completes this test with confidence and skill. As he begins to rappel, icy rain sets in. He made it.
You have to make sure to step properly. It works better with climbing shoes. I've had bad experiences with wet rock before. I fell the last time. So water is like a baptism by fire out here. It certainly won't be easy for the next climber.
These are, of course, conditions that make it more challenging when the rock is a bit damp. You first have to check, is the rock solid? Can you get a good grip everywhere? How can I secure the route?
One of the followers is Comrade Schumacher.
I'm climbing this route for the first time today, so I'll have to see how it is. With it being a bit damp and wet, it's obviously a different challenge, but we'll have to see whether it's doable or not.
The icy rain makes it not only slippery, but also very cold for their hands. The candidates are struggling with the challenging conditions at nearly 2,000 meters. Grillhosel, however, sees it differently.
We're not even in the real mountains yet. That's still to come.
Handschuhe anziehen. Zum Klettern halt da nicht. Ist so.
You just have to push through. There's no other way.
Schumacher is done, but struggles with the weather conditions.
Of course, due to the wetness, it's freezing cold. My hands are really numb. I can barely move them. But otherwise, it was okay.
Not everyone sees it that way.
Where we have to climb, we have to climb. If we're given the task, we need to figure out how to get it done. There are plenty of securing options we can take advantage of, as well as methods to simplify the whole process. The weather is fine. After all, there's no such thing as bad weather, as the saying goes.
Next up is Master Sergeant Weigel. She has an extra source of motivation. Her husband already is an Army mountain guide.
He made it, so I want to make it too. And he wasn't necessarily a better climber, but he has the advantage of being an incredibly good skier.
Weigel is struggling to tackle the steep wall. Will it be enough for admission to the course? The instructors are skeptical. There are no major mistakes, but the skill level isn't very high.
Today's conditions separate the wheat from the chaff, and that's clearly evident. The performances are very mixed. I guess it's that mountain guide weather.
The rope is wet. Nothing holds properly. The holds are partially so slippery up there. There's definitely better weather for climbing, but it's part of the experience.
The other candidates are still waiting for their test. Bloos is up next.
The waiting is quite annoying, especially in this weather. One moment the sun is shining, and then it starts raining again.
At least he's lucky with the weather. For him, it's about proving that he can move safely in Alpine terrain. He doesn't have the climbing experience of Wagner or Baumert, but he's ambitious and has done well so far. The instructors have seen enough. The candidates are left with mixed feelings.
Given the adverse conditions, we've seen it. Wet with relatively cool temperatures. Most of them performed well, but for some, it became quite clear that the challenging circumstances caused significant difficulties.
So the route itself was really nice. I have to say, it was much better than the left route I did at the beginning. Over there, the rope work went smoothly and effortlessly. So, I'm very satisfied. Usually, you're used to climbing in good weather, rarely in the rain, but when it's so cold, it becomes challenging. It was quite exhausting at times because you'd get extremely cold fingers and be exposed to sudden rain showers. In such conditions, you lose grip on your hands and feet. It turned out to be much more demanding than initially expected. I think the results of both tours will be quite interesting today.
The evaluation day for rock climbing is coming to an end. How will the instructors assess their performance? Most are uncertain. They'll find out only at the end of the week. 6 a.m. the next day. The ski evaluation is on today's agenda. By tonight, some soldiers may no longer be in such high spirits.
Zweiter Überprüfungstag, Skifahren. Wir verlegen jetzt rein ins Stubaital, Fahrzeit ca. 60 bis 75 Minuten. Wir werden da einen Gletscher raufgehen, 8 Uhr macht er auf. Okay, gut, aufsitzen.
Today, skiing, the discipline that doesn't suit me so well. But I'm optimistic that everything will work out. The excitement is, of course, still there.
Arrived at the Stubai Glacier, the soldiers are nervous. The conditions are challenging. Before they can begin, all candidates must be equipped with avalanche transceivers, devices that can save their lives in an emergency. There is a risk of avalanches. After a short warm-up phase, Instructor Grillhosel explains what he expects from them today.
So we have now arrived at the Stubai Glacier here in Austria. After the entry station, we will begin with the first test run. Generally today, we want to observe variable skiing. We are starting now on the slope. It is moderately steep terrain, a very well-prepared slope. The task will be to make medium and large turns with excellent turn control and the highest turn quality, which means the turns must be carved on edge, as they say in modern terms. I feel a bit more uneasy now than when climbing. While climbing, I still felt very comfortable, but now with skiing, there's an element of uncertainty. Not knowing the requirements makes it a bit queasy in the stomach.
Angekommen, Stubaier Gletscher, eingefahren sind sie. Wir beginnen mit der ersten Prüfungsaufgabe. Mittelsteiles Gelände auf der Piste. Wir wollen sehen, mittlere Radien bis große Radien.
It's time to begin the test. Baumert has to go first. The ski slope downhill is not a problem for him. For Wagner too, one of the best skiers among the candidates, an easy task. With Bloss, you can already see the deficits more clearly. Weigel is having major problems even on easy terrain. Schumacher gives it his all. The evaluations are extremely strict. Any bad grade can mean the end. The instructors are dissatisfied.
There are definitely 2 or 3 people that we absolutely cannot take with us, because it will be a complete hazard when we're skiing in avalanche-prone terrain. That simply will not work out. All right, regarding the first run, it was good that no one got thrown out. That was already positive. What was not so good, and what we should keep an eye on, is the overall picture. It's clear to us that with the shoe and the ski after winter, since we haven't skied for a long time, it's not that easy. But just try to make sure the position is right from the start. That I don't just arrive like that, because that can't work. Accordingly, then the result will match what we've seen. We're now moving over to the terrain, and now we're moving away from this groomed slope, and go into the mountain guide terrain, remote, steep.
The participants must tackle steep slopes with 40-degree inclines while carrying almost 15 kilograms of gear on their backs. These conditions with heavy fresh snow and icy slopes are a challenge even for good skiers.
Yes, I think the difficulty for everyone, including myself, is that when you're skiing privately, you rarely have such a heavy backpack because you have your change of clothes, some food and drinks with you. No one skis with a climbing rope.
The soldiers are having major problems. Hardly anyone can make it down the slope cleanly. Even the most experienced skier, Staff Sergeant Wagner, takes a fall. Will that be enough to be accepted into the course?
Yeah, I think the fall might probably cost me a few points. because I assume that my general approach and what happened after the fall will be evaluated as well. I guess I have entered the slope a bit too motivated due to how well it went earlier. Then it just released the binding because too much force was applied to the ski, and the result was inevitably a fall. But I hope that when you consider the overall performance, there aren't too many point deductions.
Other participants end up falling as well. Weigel is struggling a lot in these conditions. She can barely stay on her feet. Trainer Grillhosel will not like that.
Disappointing. The impression from the first test drive carried through a bit, especially during the challenging off-road drives. The skiing performance shown was already relatively disappointing.
The second descent, the open terrain, was incredibly difficult. My thighs were burning until I couldn't stand anymore. And the snow was also very difficult. The tracks or ruts in the snow made it hard for me to turn the skis properly. So I found it damn hard.
There is still an exam to come, namely the fitness test. But it's certain that not everyone will pass. That's for sure. When skiing, you're inclined to do the nice runs. The hard ones, not so much. And when it comes to the test, I think it's really tough. I think the mood was quite down after the ski task. Now we're heading home. Let's wrap it up for today. We'll continue tomorrow.
A disappointing day for the trainers and applicants. The third and final evaluation day. The instructors give the soldiers no break. The endurance run is up next. With combat boots and 15 kilos of gear, the soldiers have to go up the mountain. Normal hikers need 2.5 hours for this. They don't get this much time from Grillhosel.
Last part of the assessment week, fitness test, up to Damkerhütte, over 700 meters elevation, about 6 kilometers, under 1 hour. That means 59 minutes, 59 seconds. Then they are on track. If they are 1 second too slow, that is to say 60.00, they go home. No matter how the climbing assessment was, no matter how the skiing assessment was, these conditioning abilities and skills are a basic requirement for a future mountain guide.
Ziehen dann die Forststraße entlang Richtung Süden und gehen dann auf den blauen Weg rein, Richtung Furt, untere Kelveralm, Bankerl und dann hoch zur Damkerhütte. Ja, es werden 750 Höhenmeter circa, ja, 6 Kilometer. Und ja, Zeit 1 Stunde ist ja jedem bekannt. Braucht dann keiner rumjammern, warum das jetzt durchgefallen ist, und muss jeder die Frage stellen, warum nicht unter 1 Stunde geblieben ist.
I'm actually looking forward to the endurance run the most, because I can take it the easiest, as that's where my strength lies.
The candidates are tense. Now they are being challenged. Wagner knows what it's about.
I've been training for a long time for this. It's really just about high performance. The most exhausting part was actually preparing for today. I have to stick to the target times. Then I know if it works. Normally, it goes well. It's all about pushing hard and exerting myself for about 45 minutes.
4, 3, 2, 1, up.
A race against the relentlessly ticking clock and, above all, against one's own body. This run pushes all soldiers to their physical limits. Willpower is what counts here. And once again, bad weather. Schumacher is speeding up. The 31-year-old is in top shape. Bloss is tagging along. Wagner is just a few minutes behind.
The clock has been running for exactly 41 minutes now. In the history of this review, the best time is 38 minutes.
Baumert is losing pace. Will his body hold up? He has to give it his all. There isn't much time left. The first soldiers need to take a short breather. But with breaks, 60 minutes won't be possible. Schumacher and Bloss are moving fast. They're almost there. The last few meters are pure determination. Schumacher makes it to the finish line first. Bloss follows directly behind him in second place.
It's always a struggle getting up here, but I think with a good time, around 50 minutes, maybe just under 50, we're doing well.
It's a torment every time. But the timing is right, so I'm satisfied.
Wagner, at 39 years old, is having a good run.
It was better than in training. You can definitely tell that running with more people boosts motivation.
We have now 53 minutes and basically have 7 minutes left for the last ones.
Baumert drags himself to the finish line with his last bit of strength. The 700 meters of elevation gain took everything out of him. Completely exhausted, he made it within the time limit. Passed. That's the most important thing.
Zeit passt. Man muss nicht immer Erster sein.
Weigel showed signs of exhaustion early on. She is completely at her limit. Time is running out for her. Only a few seconds left, and she hasn't passed.
The time is up now. One participant is still missing, and in the end, she already knows herself that it won't be enough to pass the course.
Weigel did not make it. Months of hard work completely in vain. She will not make it into the course, no matter how the remaining assessments went. The comrades sympathize with her.
What happened cannot be said. It's a shame. Because everyone deserves it, but sometimes it's just not enough.
Meine Beine total zugemacht, hoch zu, ging überhaupt nicht mehr schneller. Rücken tat weh, das kenne ich überhaupt nicht. Also wahrscheinlich der Druck, den man dann sich zusätzlich noch macht. Und außerdem habe ich eben ein bisschen abgehakt nach dem gestrigen Tag vom Skifahren her. Das kommt vielleicht auch noch ein bisschen dazu.
From my point of view, this is the easiest test. This is the basic requirement, the extra effort done during preparation. Everyone can prepare physically to this extent. Almost everyone can complete this route in under 60 minutes. It is a task of perseverance. No peak times, but everyone made it within the limit. Except for one person, everyone's made it. First of all, congratulations to everyone who took on the challenge of the Army Mountain Guide exam. Congratulations to all. Congratulations on the performance that was shown. Also today, with the conclusion of the fitness test. Dry off, drink something, and air out. We are moving out at 10:30.
At the Karwendel Barracks, the evaluation week concludes with the announcement of the grades.
So, die Auswertung der gezeigten Leistungen ist hiermit abgeschlossen. Wir haben die Listen alle fertig gemacht. Jetzt geht es darum, dass ich Ihnen die Leistungen eröffne. Mensch, Frau Weigel.
I think we don't have to talk about your stamina. That is your own fault. You were almost 4 minutes over time. And when it came to climbing, it didn't really work either. There was a 4 once and a 5 another time. Shot grade 5 3 times in skiing. So overall, it wasn't a close decision because you failed at climbing, skiing, and the condition test. So it's not a close decision, but a very clear one.
Aber wir werden es mit Sicherheit auch nicht das zweite Mal versuchen. Also für einmal und nochmal nicht. Ich weiß auch vom Alter her, ich sage dann irgendwann mal, ist dann mal Schluss.
Unlike Weigel, did Bloss manage to make it?
The condition was good. Excellent. Welcome to the course. But take the skiing notice seriously. And we hope that in the Alpine terrain, where the mountain guide moves, it will work out. Yes, of course, I am primarily relieved that I passed this entrance test. And now I can start the course with a more relaxed mind. Well, we don't need to talk around it for long. A warm welcome to the course. You even got a 1 on a climbing tour. And that from Rauschenberger, that's not so easy. That was just the admission ticket. The course is just starting now, and we have a long way ahead of us. Anything can happen. But for now, the foundation has been laid. We don't need to talk for long, right? A warm welcome to the course. I'm of course satisfied. The fitness test went well after everything, and the evaluation showed that I can stay, so yeah, I'm happy with the outcome. Schumacher, welcome to the course, but your skiing skills. Something needs to happen there, otherwise it can end badly for you.
In the area of skiing, it wasn't quite my best day, but it was still enough, and now I'm happy and glad that the training can really start next week.
Final conclusion. Exhausting week. Exciting week. Not just for the course participants, but also for the core training team. 18 men started. We are now going into the course with 11. It begins next Tuesday, Central European Tour. Let's see how many will remain for the appointment next April. I hope all of them.
The journey through Central Europe begins. In the Franconian Switzerland, one of the most challenging sport climbing areas in Europe, the goal is to get the participants fit. This is how the soldiers' daily life will look for the next 8 months. Cramped quarters, only equipped with the essentials, always ready to march. Life on the edge within 2 square meters. The instructors will push the participants to their limits.
Das wichtigste Prinzip beim Klettern. Wir haben nur eine Toilette hier. Wir haben jeden Morgen Stau auf unserer Toilette. Deswegen bleibt für den einen oder anderen keine Zeit mehr hier, sich zu erleichtern.
The first week of training begins. The instructors will be demanding.
The main goal is to achieve a red point climb of this route. Red point means I can practice beforehand. But I must climb the route without resting or using carabiners or quick draws for movement.
Bloss and his comrades want to show their best and have chosen challenging routes. Under Grillhosel's stern gaze, they can't afford mistakes because every mistake costs a lot of energy. But Baumert is having difficulties. Did he overestimate himself?
Ja, na, dann muss halt jetzt auch mal ein bisschen Entschlusskraft. Das ist für die crazy Ausnahme. Wenn der Rest passt, reingehe und Gas geben.
Das ist halt schwer einzuschätzen. Wie gesagt, die Arme sind halt gut vorbelastet, ne, durch die letzten Tage. Ich würde es halt gerne noch ein- oder zweimal probieren, aber dann ist quasi der Akku alle.
Wagner is giving it his all, but he's also chosen a very challenging route. He has to cling to the wall with just a few fingers. He can't keep this up for much longer.
I had planned to climb a 7, but it didn't work out at all today because I was a bit exhausted at the beginning and then at the top. As my strength was fading, my technique weakened.
Wagner wanted too much.
A bit disappointed. It wasn't really what we're capable of. Everything has to fit together, head and body. I think tactically, some overreached with the red choice and got in too heavily.
Even the others are not achieving their chosen goal. The trainers will not be satisfied. Schumacher is giving it his all. A climb at the 7th difficulty level demands everything from him. Maximum strain on fingers and arms. The right climbing technique is crucial. A first taste of his temperament. The instructors still have a lot of work ahead of them.
There is too much climbing with the arms, and on such small grip routes in the 7th or 8th grade, that can be fatal. Now they are a bit disappointed, but I think we will attack again tomorrow.
Some people still need to do some work to be able to pass the course in the end.
At the foot of the Blau-Eis Glacier, the training for alpine climbing begins. In idyllic nature with mountains as high as 2,600 meters, training leader Grillhosel wants to see full performance.
Training section Alpine Climbing Basics, that's what I call this training section, lasts almost 2 weeks. We are in the so-called Blau-Eis area, and we are accommodated at the Blau-Eis hut at 1,680 meters. That is our base, providing the advantage that we have extremely short paths to the climbing routes and the training sites. The purpose of this stay, to make the leap from the Franconian Jura, from sport climbing to alpine climbing. The training content here includes constructing belay stations, teaching the rope team process, and immediately applying it in climbing routes, specifically in alpine climbing routes.
In the mountains, the soldiers feel at home. However, their home is a small mountain hut. The Blau-Eis hut serves the soldiers not only as a base for climbing tours in the coming days, but also as accommodation. Quick wash at the communal bathroom. Sleeping in a dormitory with 15 men in a cramped room that also functions as a laundry room. For days, the soldiers live without privacy. After all, they did not come here for vacation. First up is Captain Baumert. Today, he has the task of safely leading 4 comrades through the mountains. One of them is Instructor Rauschenberger, a strict examiner in climbing. Baumert has to find the right route, lead the climb, and set the anchors correctly. His comrades must be able to rely on him fully at all times, because these safety measures save their lives in an emergency. Besides the physical exertion of climbing, it is vital to stay alert and focused. Instructor Rauschenberger wants to see precise work.
In the end, it's about leading the route under relatively simple conditions with only climbing gear and securing it as best as possible for the person following.
Baumert is still optimistic.
For warming up, it's pretty good. There are already a few wet spots in there, but the first pitch is rated something like a 4, which is fine so far. I think the exciting parts are still to come. So far, I'm still doing well. The weather is quite varied. Not much luck in the past 2 days, but otherwise, it's fine. I mean, showering every 3 days is more than enough. But yeah, it's fun to finally be out in the field doing something.
Now he needs to focus. No mistakes allowed.
Nee, das ist dann halt mal so. Aber
ja, aber mit einem Seil hilft mir nichts.
Now, it's time to optimize during the training tours, and if that starts from the next stay in the leadership tours, then it's no longer in the safe zone. So it becomes a 6 when safety is at risk, just like right now.
Baumert made a mistake. A safety sling was wrongly placed and would not have held in the event of a fall. A life-threatening error that the trainers cannot forgive.
The climbing was okay. Today it is not that easy because everything is still a bit damp, especially at the belay station. So I'll just say he eventually noticed himself that he had only clipped one of the 2 ropes into the safety. It was a good idea, but unfortunately not thought through to the end. Yeah, no, we will face the consequences, so if this happens more often with participants, then the course is over for him.
Failing a tour is almost always directly related to whether safety-relevant mistakes were made. If it's a strict test tour, then that's it. That's how it is. But he won't make the mistake again. That's why we do practice tours.
Will Grillhosel be right about it? Baumert must keep going, not give up. The instructors are dissatisfied.
The course is shifting a bit now. By shifting, I mean that this input phase, which comes from me and the instructors, is decreasing. And this performance assessment from the course participant increases. That means they plan the tours, interpret weather forecasts, determine the routes. The participant must set up intermediate anchors. They lead the whole day. They are in charge.
That's not how Baumert imagined it. Right on the first tour, he made a mistake that must not happen again. Otherwise, he would not pass the course. Now, he doesn't have time to think about it. He hasn't led his team to the summit yet, and giving up is not an option. Baumert is not the type for that. Step by step, he climbs the steep rock walls.
It was an exciting endeavor, as it was very treacherous terrain. But I have a good partner in the rope team. You can really rely on that. Steadiness is important here, as well as quick reactions. There shouldn't be too much slack in the rope. You really have to watch every step you take, and then it goes well. There will certainly be more challenging terrain ahead, which will also be interesting.
The final steps to the Baumert made it.
Ja, haben wir es geschafft. Hi. Darf ich die losmachen? Das war schon anspruchsvoll.
That tour was quite demanding. Maybe I could push a bit more, but you don't always want to test the limits right away. Especially with responsibility, you should choose the right terrain, where you're not climbing at your absolute limit, because then you can't manage to guide your second partner. So I think the terrain was just right for me to handle it safely. I hope my limits won't be tested too often.
We don't do tours like the one we did today as much in our free time. Naturally, the risk increases and the enjoyment isn't as much. You have to constantly watch out, brittle rock, some unpleasant climbing. You don't really do it so gladly. Overall, we had many small problems. Like, there's still quite a bit to do, but it was a decent tour. So many little things. There's still a lot to work on, and you need a lot of time for that. Small things weren't solved optimally, but overall we were safe, especially with the climbing, and now we're on the right path.
After his mistake, Baumert had a good run. However, the mistake should not be repeated. Back at the Blau Ice Hut, the evening before his tour, Staff Sergeant Bloss just needs to brief his comrades, who will climb with him tomorrow on the route.
For the troop formation tomorrow, we'll first be in the rope team. Me, Shubi, Jay, and Jonas. Here's our situation for tomorrow. The weather tomorrow morning. It should still be nice. From the afternoon, it will be cloudy and rain is expected. Let's go outside again. With a view of the area, I'll briefly tell you something about the route, where it is located, where the entrance and exit are.
Richtung Gipfel sieht man im unteren Bereich so leichten schwarzen, also nasse Wand, schwarze nasse Wand. Dort wird sein unser erster Standplatz, von dem wir aus sichern werden.
The briefing was very flawed. Yes, looking at the terrain and the route is one thing, but there were many details and pointers missing.
Bloss is disappointed. This increases the pressure for tomorrow even more.
Thankfully, this is a practice run now, not in the sense of a full-scale tour, but even then there's some clear excitement.
The soldiers are unlucky once again. Clouds gather and the weather changes overnight. The next morning, it rains non-stop. In the sleeping quarters, the soldiers sleep lined up like sardines. A restful sleep is out of the question. This makes the training to become an army mountain guide even harder. Only slowly do they struggle out of their sleeping bags. Slowly, all the soldiers wake up. Time for the bathroom. When everyone is awake, it gets very crowded there. Bloss did not sleep well.
It was hard to sleep somehow. It rained and you could hear it really loud on the skylight. But otherwise, as usual.
The young staff sergeant prepared for the tour late into the night. After the failed briefing, he wants to do better today. It's still unclear if the tour will happen at all due to the weather.
Also das hält ja oft nur mal dann hier im Osten, sage ich mal, vom deutschen Alpenraum ein bisschen länger her als jetzt im Westen. Und das wäre natürlich die Hoffnung. Im Westen muss der Führer ja Entscheidungen treffen und das ist eigentlich das, wo man ranbringen will.
Here, the course participants, when they stand there in the morning giving the preliminary orders, you can already see that they are very nervous. They stand in the pulpit all day, have to guide the instructor and the classroom leader on the rope, and are challenged all day in the pulpit. The nervousness is definitely visible.
The rain has let up a little and the soldiers are starting their patrol. Bloss is tense. It will be a difficult patrol under poor conditions.
Bloss is going with the examiner Schuby into the Great Chimney, making very good progress, moving fairly quickly. I assume they will be at the exit in 1.5 to 2 hours. Looks good from here.
Even the group around Bloss is still moving safely along the steep and wet rock walls. Nevertheless, they are placing so-called friends, intermediate protections that can save your life in the event of a fall. Instructor Schubert warns the soldiers about the loose rock. Suddenly, a stone breaks loose and flies directly toward them. The rock misses the rope team by a hair's breadth. A rock fall can be fatal or cause serious injuries. They were lucky, but the soldiers are warned and set up more intermediate protections. But then, it happens. A soldier ends up falling. Comrade Lengemann fell almost 10 meters straight down the wall before his placed friend caught him.
Was praying the friend would hold me, otherwise this would have been a long fall.
Hey Lengemann, alles in Ordnung? Du hast einen ganz schönen Sturz gemacht, ne? Ja, alles gut. Fuck, Mann, das war ein Riesenhenkel jetzt schon wieder. Schubi, alles gut, bleib stehen. Ja, alles gut. Ey, du musst langsamer, alles ganz langsam belassen. Du dürfst auch Henkel nicht vollziehen.
And as you saw with Jonas, he made the right decision to put in the friend. Otherwise, it would have ended worse.
Da. Riesengroßer Fleck, weiß ich nicht. 15 auf 30 Zentimeter.
Bloss needs to make a decision now.
We are calling it off. Jonas pulled out a boulder and partially fell down with it. One must not break out in panic, because otherwise, the situation might get out of hand. You still need to stay focused and not jump to conclusions.
Lengemann is visibly distressed. Bloss makes the right decision as Lengemann needs medical attention.
2 Meter oder was über dem letzten Friend gestanden. Der hat gut gehalten. Bin halt trotzdem ganz schön unten eingeschlagen, weil es halt echt unschönes Sturzgelände ist. Ja, jetzt bin halt bis hier noch nachgestiegen. Aber gut geht's mir gerade nicht.
Lass den Arm draußen. Komm, den Arm dahin.
Now we will make sure that we take Jonas down and let a doc have a look at him.
Du nimmst einen Schubi rein, ans kurze Seil, binden Jonas direkt ein und wir gehen sofort los.
The soldiers realize that their job is life-threatening.
Primarily the leader, when leading a group of people, already has a certain tension. And because of that fall, the tension got even worse. And then, of course, through the training we provide to the course participants, they might also understand the dangers that come with mountaineering, and maybe only now truly realize what it really means to climb at the sharp end of the rope. And that might actually be a good thing, that they become a bit more thoughtful.
Bloss leads his team safely down the mountain. He's not worried about his grade today. He's glad it didn't turn out worse. But how bad Lengemann's injury is, the doctor has to determine first.
All right, so I can't feel anything wrong with the bone for now, which is the good news. Nevertheless, as a precaution, we should have it x-rayed tomorrow after the descent. From the looks of it now, I think the bursa might have taken a bit of a hit. We will put a bandage on it for now, and I think it should get a lot better. Keep your arms still, don't do much, hold back on climbing for the next few days. If you ignore it now, that's probably going to be it.
The shock for Lengemann runs deep. Will he be able to continue participating in the course? Instructor Schubert calls for a report.
The route was generally bad because it had a lot of rockfall. Personally, I wouldn't have even started this route.
From my perspective, I was actually pretty safe. I checked everything, tested every step again, felt really secure while climbing, and was extremely surprised when that flake or block came off. I am really glad that I did it this way, which was developed in the last few days, that even at an easy level, if you feel safe, you place plenty of intermediate safeguards. I really didn't feel good there because I was scared.
What I didn't really like, but with everyone, is how you control kicks and grips. I think I mentioned 2 or 3 times. Slow down the tapping. You're doing it too hard. I go there and slowly let it come from my calf and see how it moves. Then I first check if it moves with just the slow tapping. Then I increase the pressure just a little. That's all. This is how I check the stone, especially the step. I noted that as test gate 2, and that would be the grade 3.
But the grade doesn't matter. What's most important to him is that everyone gets down from the mountain safely. In the evening, he is very quiet and reflective. He has to think about his family, his wife, and their 2 small children.
The course participants do change over the 4 months in summer. They become calmer and perhaps more thoughtful. This can have several factors. For one, naturally, the strain of the course. We've been away for almost 5 weeks now. Being apart from home, from family, from one's partner, from the children. My wife knows too, I told her. If anything happened to me, then she would get a call from one of my superiors personally. And if she doesn't get a call, then she doesn't need to worry.
A tough day comes to an end. The next morning, only the descent from the hut remains. However, Lengemann did not get better overnight.
Gestern noch besser angefühlt als heute.
Okay, tut's mehr weh?
Ja.
Ist aber weiter geschwollen oder?
Ich glaube nicht, nee. Ich glaube nicht.
Okay. Schauen wir uns mal an. Von den Schmerzen war es erträglich über Nacht?
Ja, ich habe gestern Abend die Schmerztablette genommen gehabt. Aber dann, zweite Nachthälfte bin ich schon ein paar Mal aufgewacht, weil ich irgendwie Schmerzen hat.
Ja, müssen wir auf jeden Fall nochmal nachschauen. Wir müssen auf jeden Fall ausschließen, dass da ein Bruch mit im Spiel ist.
Next week, it certainly won't be easy getting into the circle with the ice equipment. That will now become part of the stock. So his Bursa will either stay, or if he's unlucky, they need to take it out, and then next year, he can make another attempt.
All the course participants are glad to have Blau ice behind them. They managed tough tours and bad weather. Now, with 30 kilograms of gear, they head back to the barracks.
For the training course participants, Blau ice is coming to an end. But this also means that the climbing training on the rock is concluding. And the next time we are purely on rock, it will be in the Sella in September. Next week, we are first heading to the Taschach House in the Ötztal Alps in Austria, where we will conduct ice training as preparation for the major stay in Chamonix. And we will be primarily on ice and snow in Chamonix, or on combined tours. Then we will also be in the Mont Blanc Massif, where altitude is a factor. Most tours are all over 4,000 meters, so you need to be well acclimatized or really tolerate the altitude well, as it is very physically demanding. And I'll say it like this: Chamonix is famous for a reason. It's simply the mecca for climbers, and there are many demanding long routes there.
They kept their promise. The soldiers are on their way to the next training segment to become Army mountain guides. The Mont Blanc Massif in the French Alps, with peaks up to 4,800 meters, the highest in Europe. This will be a tough exam section. Not everyone will successfully complete this stay. The first test is ice climbing. With crampons and an ice axe, the soldiers must scale icy glacier walls. The examiners grade rigorously.
I actually said at the beginning that this would probably be a short and sweet part. And it was, in my opinion.
In such inhospitable terrain, you must trust yourself and your equipment. Determination and confident movement are crucial here. However, most of the course participants appear anything but confident. The instructors have to start over again. Instructor Schubert shows the soldiers how it's done. His conclusion is sobering.
I'm really frustrated when the quality and standards are falling off, and we have to start over from scratch every time.
The instructors are worried. The soldiers' poor skill level poses a risk for the upcoming tours. If someone falls into such a crevasse, it could mean death.
Well, you know, when you move in Alpine terrain, you are aware that it involves danger. We are trained in this field, so we can minimize the sources of danger. However, you can't rule them out completely.
Captain Baumert, unfortunately, did not manage to minimize the dangers. Off camera, he repeated his safety-related mistake from the Blau eyes. As a result, he will not pass this difficult part of the training. He can continue with the rest of the course, but he must repeat this part, a significant setback on the path to becoming an Army mountain guide. The instructors were not proven right.
Am nächsten Aufenthalt in die Führungstouren ist, dann ist es nimmer im grünen Bereich, also dann wird es 6.
Aber wird den Fehler nicht wieder machen.
Even training director Grillhosel does not.
Captain Baumert got his first guided tour from the Torino hut. Across the Rochefort Ridge or over the Rochefort Ridge, to the Aiguille Rochefort, and then back. And then, because it was just too short, we went on another rock tour and he made 2 safety mistakes there. That is completely unacceptable, and there's nothing to discuss. So he did not pass the tour. I've been upset about it for long enough now. What's more important is learning from it, drawing your conclusions, and being able to apply them correctly later on.
The next morning, it continues straight away. Guided tours are on the agenda. The mountain guide needs to safely lead his team through the high mountains. All the content learned so far will be tested during these tours.
We are here at the base station of the Aiguille du Midi cable lift. It will take us up to 3,800 meters. The plan for today is to do the Cosmiques Ridge, which will then bring us back to the summit of the Aiguille du Midi. The guide will certainly do a lot of leading on a short rope, and at the difficult sections, he will throw down his working rope, and will alternately climb secured or free climb, securing the follower from behind. In terms of guiding technique, he has a lot to do, despite the short length of the rope. The Cosmic Ridge is not difficult. It's definitely an adequate tour. Anyone who can't make it up there, he is out of place with us. Cosmic Grad is conducted daily by the Chamonix mountain guides with guests from all over the world. And the Army mountain guide must be able to lead this grade safely and quickly.
Today, Master Sergeant Wagner has to prove himself.
Tomorrow morning, when we get up, we might not fully feel the responsibility yet. I think once the carabiner clicks and you've got your partner on the rope, then it really hits you. In the past few days, we have already guided each other. The responsibility is quite high there.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, but I know Jens. I know what he's capable of, where he stands, and I'm pretty sure I won't be endangered.
The strict instructor Rieger is conducting the examination today.
I'm scared for my life, and accordingly, it's being checked. If they don't all bring it, then there will be consequences.
In the valley, it's 21 degrees Celsius. Up here at a good 3,800 meters, it's only -3. Nevertheless, many tourists gather here and want to climb the highest mountain in Europe. But this altitude is not every day for the soldiers either.
When you first arrive, you might feel short of breath after taking a few quick steps. You need to get used to the 3,800 meters and start by taking a few slower steps.
How slowly things will progress today, Wagner does not yet realize. He needs to prepare his climbing gear and is having some issues with it. However, he is aware of the risks.
sie gleich. Mach jetzt normale, weil so kannst du dich führen hier mit der Scheiße auf.
Certainly in the mountains, there are so many objective dangers where you sometimes can't rule out rock falls, ice falls. I can't avoid them, but I can move in such a way or choose the route smartly to maybe minimize them. And somehow, like this, the strategy or good training keeps risks under control as much as possible.
Wagner's tour begins. Clouds are gathering. One must always pay attention to the weather. If you get caught in a snowstorm at this altitude, no one can help you. Step by step, the rope team struggles over narrow cliffs and steep, snowy rocks. Wagner is moving quickly and safely. So far, everything is going well. until the soldiers encounter the tourist climbers. They're blocking the only route. Wagner has to pause and cannot maintain his rhythm. The soldiers are annoyed. Traffic jam at 4,000 meters.
We had actually planned it so that we would start later and all the hustle and bustle here would be gone, so that we have a clear path. But since it also rained 3 times now, it somehow didn't quite work out. Now it's difficult. Up ahead, it's even tighter. Now we come to the 2 real abseiling spots. And that's also a jam. There are still 50 people standing there. Right here during my guided tour, it was already a bit off-putting. Especially because there are so many uninformed, unknowledgeable, and poorly equipped people in the broken mountain range. In Chamonix, they say there is at least 1 death per day. Such statistics support what we have seen.
However, as an army mountain guide, it is essential to stay calm and lead your comrades safely.
Yes, it has settled in. At the beginning, it was really a bit, I don't know, frustrating.
Get the average of 1 death per day out of your mind. A hard test for the psyche. Wagner must carry on. Instructor Rieger wants to see belaying techniques. Wagner has to secure his comrade while rappelling and must not make any mistakes. Wagner is an experienced mountaineer, but today he seems hectic, almost nervous. The trainer is not satisfied. Wagner needs to correct that. This costs him valuable time and potentially points as well. How will the instructor evaluate the whole situation?
He's a little nervous. He's generally a bit jittery. You could see it a couple of times in the beginning. But otherwise, what he's showing is fine. There is not much flow here. Always the damming, the blocking, the waiting. Restarting and the flow falls a bit. I don't find that very optimal now.
Wagner has to hurry. The weather is getting worse. Freezing rain is making climbing extremely unpleasant.
Yes, and then the guide gets a bit nervous at the beginning because he wasn't familiar with it like that. They did tell him that it would be like this and that he needed to be quick, but he got a little nervous. But, well, it'll work out.
The final meters for Wagner and his comrades. His tour didn't go as he imagined. At the end, a shaky ladder awaits in freezing rain. For some climbers, more challenging than a steep rock face. But another hurdle towards the badge has been overcome.
Yes, that was actually quite annoying. You never really got into the flow. All this waiting and stopping, thinking about what to do next.
Zum Westalpenfeeling kommt, mit Menschenmassen. Das war irgendwie anders. Das war irgendwie anders.
The very next morning, the soldiers face another test. High in the peaks of the Mont Blanc massif, shrouded in clouds.
We are up here in the Grand Monte area at about 3,000 meters. It's mid to late July. In Germany, it is summer. A cold front has passed, resulting in a lot of fresh snow. Perfect weather for a mountain rescue test. What are we doing here? We have a large glacier crevasse. We will build a backup anchor there. The course participants will jump into the crevasse, be brought to the same height, and then must perform a self-rescue from the crevasse using the so-called mountain guide method. All of this will be timed. The mountain rescue exam here, this ice section, is also graded. The pressure of being graded is present and noticeable among the participants, and they get slightly nervous.
The tension is palpable. The soldiers are becoming calmer and more focused.
Yes, I am already a bit excited. Above all, it will be terribly exhausting soon. Because let me say, it's not just the technology and handling of all the things, worrying about dropping them. It will be really exhausting soon. Today, it is only snowing. Yesterday, it rained the whole day during training. So the weather is actually much better than yesterday. Accidents don't happen in good weather. Accidents mostly happen when I'm tired and under bad conditions. We have bad weather now, so we're doing the test now.
Only secured by a rope, the soldiers lower themselves into the glacier crevasse. If they fall now, the glacier would simply swallow them. No one knows exactly how deep these crevasses are. Another reason why a mountain army guide should be able to rescue themselves from such a situation. If they can't save themselves, how can they save others?
I think it makes any difference, to be honest. Stopp! Ja, dann alle noch mal kurz herhören.
The conditions are clear for everyone. Now, once you start, you can begin working. Time stops when both feet are out of the top gap. It's important to remember the system switches to the mountain guide method when rebuilt. Now take a deep breath, consider what you want to do. Everyone is set. From our side, we wish you success and go for it. If everyone is ready, on your marks, get set, go.
From now on, the participants have 10 minutes to free themselves from the crevasse. It's an absolute challenge. If someone doesn't manage it, they've failed this test. It would be a major setback on the path to becoming an Army mountain guide. The instructors cheer on the soldiers. The absolute determination helps with this task. Some soldiers are having trouble with the required technique. Two soldiers haven't made it yet, Langemann and Schumacher. A hellish feat. Langemann is out. Now Schumacher is alone. A battle against exhaustion, cold, and the relentless ticking clock of the instructor. The final 10 seconds. Still, he can make it. Time's up. The instructors have Schumacher pulled from the crevasse. He didn't make it on his own.
In front of all the other course participants, I don't want to say it's disgraceful, but it is a failure somehow. Everyone is watching, cheering him on, and he can't get out. And he needs to get out. He wants to become a mountain guide, and he has to get out. And I just hope that it never, never truly happens that he falls in and can't get out.
Schumacher is completely exhausted. He barely feels his hands and legs anymore. A severe setback for him. He gave it his all, but this time both his body and nerves failed.
Everyone has a bad performance now and then. It's done and recorded. I have to forget it and move on. That's important. Just look ahead. There are so many more exams, and these weren't the first failings today. I won't be their therapist. They have to get through it themselves.
An Army mountain guide operates in very dangerous and hard-to-reach areas. The soldiers must know how to rescue an injured person or even themselves by helicopter from these areas. Air rescue is on this week's schedule. The instructors and pilots are discussing the mission.
Sprechen das nochmal kurz ab, fliegen dann als erstes im Bereich vom Rossgraben, da wo diese Felsen drinnen sind, oder das Schrobengelände. Als erstes 3 Verletzte raus. Da ist einer von uns dabei, dass wir die absetzen.
This week we basically have helicopter training. It was about that last week the basics of mountain rescue were covered, so without a helicopter, and in the mountains, helicopters are often used relatively frequently to transport the injured. And now this week, we basically started yesterday and laid the groundwork in relatively easy terrain, I would say. It starts with getting out, then on the winch, where only one person hangs with their climbing gear and goes up and down alone. And today it's about packing an injured person into a sort of lying transport device. Then pick up with a helicopter, again first in easier terrain and then somewhere in the forest or later in steeper rocky terrain.
Today's operational equipment is a Bell UH-1D, a 1,400 horsepower helicopter from the Vietnam War era. So it's a bit older. That's why the pilot carefully checks if the machine is ready for use and perfectly airworthy. It comes with additional equipment, including a winch for rescuing people and material. Introduced into the German Armed Forces on the 14th of July, 1970. The aircraft is safe for operation. The pilots start the turbines and go through their checklists. With the low-hanging clouds, they must be able to rely 100% on their instruments. Today will be a challenging flight day. It is extremely challenging to bring the helicopter close to the rock walls and keep it steady there. Only the most experienced pilots can perform such maneuvers. The pilots fly towards the soldiers they need to rescue. They are not easy to spot in the rocky terrain. It's crucial to maintain orientation. With delicate precision, they maneuver the helicopter along the cliffs. A small mistake, and the helicopter could crash into the mountains. Dangerous downdrafts can occur at any time, posing a great risk even for the soldier on the ground. Sergeant Bloss is lowered by winch to the injured soldiers. Along with him is a mobile rescue device, a kind of stretcher for retrieving people. Due to the powerful downdraft from the rotor, he starts to spin. He has to control it with his arms to avoid losing control. The soldiers will soon learn how quickly that can happen. Upon reaching the injured person, he has to quickly detach from the winch and prepare the rescue.
We have an injured person here. We were dropped off here by a helicopter, packed up the injured person, and are now being picked up by the helicopter again.
Sergeant Wagner is simulating the injured person. He must fully trust. A mistake could cost him his life. The helicopter is back and ready for transport. However, Bloss makes a mistake that could have dire consequences.
When the helicopter came back to pick him up, the winch hook came down to him. He had to prepare everything, attach everything to the winch hook, and he gave the ready signal to be lifted, even though his personal safety gear was still attached. That's a rather critical point. In an exam situation, it would be a fail, and I would say it shouldn't happen like that. Well, what can happen? It could cause the helicopter to crash if it has to leave thinking it's clear because it got the OK signal. Then it can move forward and start to accelerate. And if it's hanging on a taut rope, in the worst case, it can crash.
Instructor Rauschenberger admonishes the soldiers. They need to work more precisely, especially in cooperation with the helicopter, because they are putting not only their lives at risk, but also those of the pilots. The crew is initiating a new approach. They had to abort the previous one due to a critical mistake. Bloss is on alert. This must not happen to him again. He gives the signal to ascend.
They've noticed it themselves, of course. They would have preferred not to forget, but it happened. I'll say we need to work on this for the next 2 days so that they pay more attention to their tasks and aren't distracted by other things.
Unfortunately, this was not a good result for Bloss. Captain Baumert hopes for a more successful day. During the next run, the soldiers have to rescue an injured person from a ditch. The pilot must maneuver precisely past the trees, directly over the soldiers, and all of this with a helicopter from the year 1970.
Here we ultimately have a station operation where they try to lift an injured person lying down with the helicopter. The challenge or difficulty here is certainly also for the helicopter pilot, since he ultimately has to keep the machine precisely on point, and that's why he sometimes circles around to start anew.
The rescuer is lowered from the helicopter, hanging on the winch. The pilots must be extremely focused now. The slightest movements of the control stick keep the aircraft in place. Gusts of wind set the helicopter in motion. The pilots can lower the soldier only once they are absolutely certain that the machine is under control. The so-called onboard blender drops off the soldier. However, the downdrafts are causing problems again.
There is a rotation effect if they're not careful, if they're too curious. And that's not entirely safe. Otherwise, I think it's a new experience for people. Packing is a bit of a stress factor because it's loud, because the wind is there. Not everyone has done this yet, but they're doing quite well. Curious, when they go down to the winch, they always look where it's going. And because of this movement, when I'm off balance, I have a larger surface area for the wind, and then the rotation starts even faster.
The first injured person and his rescuer can be recovered. The pilots make a direct takeoff to get out of the trench. The soldiers hang under the aircraft at almost 100 kilometers per hour, several hundred meters above the ground. This is not a pleasant experience. Slowly, the soldiers are pulled into the aircraft. The next ones are already waiting for their flight there. Among them, Captain Baumert. He is released from the helicopter by the onboard mixer. He also goes into a spin, but can't stop it. The spinning gets faster and faster. There's a risk of unconsciousness. The pilots must react. They take off again to stabilize Baumert with the airflow.
The problem now was that he presented a relatively large area with his rescue device, and directly under the machine, the downwash is very strong and then spins him around. So either they needed to quickly move him further under the machine, or he needs to keep his device close to his body for a longer time. But we'll see that in a moment, and that's why we conduct the training slowly, so that we can improve it.
I was relatively okay. I think another minute or so, and it would have been different for me. I was already thinking he has to do something soon.
Yes, summary of the air rescue or helicopter week. Now from the course, we couldn't do as much in the field as we normally can. It always depends a lot on the weather. You could see that too, I'd say. On the first day, we had to practice on our training ground in constant rain, and later, we couldn't venture into the high mountains as prominently as we had actually planned.
In the Austrian town of Litzum, one of the 3 high mountain troop training areas of the Bundeswehr is located. At nearly 2,000 meters, realistic mountain combat can be practiced here. The soldiers are tense because it's all done with live ammunition.
The focus here is shooting, the shooting training in the high mountains. We will teach the course participants all the special aspects of shooting in the high mountains, and then review everything in a final exercise. We definitely do it this way. We are not using blanks. We are shooting with live ammunition.
It requires utmost concentration and discipline from everyone during live ammunition shooting exercises. The soldiers load their magazines. For this time, they will be shooting day and night. 36 rounds of 5.56 millimeter fit into the magazine of the G-36 assault rifle of the German Bundeswehr.
We are here at Camp Litzum for now. It's located at 2,000 meters above sea level. Right now, ammunition is being loaded for today's shooting day. We will now head towards Klamjoch, and we are on shooting range 3, and the focus today is on downhill shooting, also known as angle shooting, so with normal handguns. The participants are being trained in mountain position construction, carrying out position selection to get back into it, gain experience, and just shoot in the high mountains. What to pay attention to is, no matter what weapon I use, if I take an angled shot, even with a regular handgun, how it must be aimed. That's really important. Otherwise, it will never hit.
With a wolf, a jeep, and a tracked vehicle, a Hagland, the soldiers are driven towards the firing range. Instructor Schubert is giving more detailed instructions for the upcoming shooting exercise.
Da wo wir dann sind, wir werden erstmal im linken Bereich anfangen in dem Blockgelände. Und wenn wir oben sind, seid ihr auch dann da. Stimmt's, Jens? Wir haben ja gestern 3 eingeteilt.
So when we are in the mountains, we usually shoot over long distances. And if the wind blows here at 5.56 millimeters, then the bullet really goes into action because of the wind. Today we are lucky. We really have perfect weather. Rarely, but we can also be lucky during our training course.
The tension among the soldiers is once again palpable. They now need to find a suitable position to engage the enemy, ideally in an elevated spot. Master Sergeant Wagner is experienced and knows how to gain advantages in battle.
The position is such that we are harder to see because we created a moving silhouette against the horizon with the rising sun. Here we are more covered, so we move a bit to the side. The setup wasn't very good, so we have to improvise a bit. But in terms of visibility of the opponent, it's a bit better.
We now have an underlying enemy, so what great advantage do we have?
For once, we can be incredibly effective here. From top to bottom, we have good visibility when we are elevated.
And when we have the underlying enemy and we are elevated, we will definitely launch the attack. It will be destroyed, so there is no evasion.
The soldiers must navigate challenging terrain while engaging targets in a controlled manner. The risk of comrades getting caught in the line of fire is very high. The instructors must teach the recruits to orient themselves in battle, and pay close attention to their surroundings. Ultimately, fighting with firearms is essential for a soldier.
Yes, that might later be the mission order that requires this military aspect, and not just going up and down a mountain in casual clothes.
Small teams are coordinated to attack targets with electric rifles and grenade launchers. Troop leaders must give clear commands and lead their comrades. Every Army mountain leader must master this in an emergency. Despite the German soldiers' limited combat experience, they are very skilled at their craft. Instructor Schubert can be satisfied with his soldiers.
We held the evaluation of the entire course up there, and I agree that we worked very well because the terrain up there is very difficult. Even for the aspiring mountain guides, as I said, it was really challenging. Everything is so loose, the rock, real stones were dislodged again, and they stayed highly motivated and focused until the end. You could see that in the last shooting we did as well, and I am very satisfied with that.
But the firing day is not over yet. The night shooting is still to come. In the mountains, complete darkness prevails. The soldiers, and especially their leaders, are even more challenged than during the day.
You've noticed yourself how difficult the terrain was to walk during the day? It will be even more challenging at night. Everyone has to work slowly. And remember, you are now summer mountain guides. How much rockfall and stones we've set loose. At night, I can't immediately see if such a boulder has started moving. It's picking up speed. We really need to be careful now. That's why I want to at least walk that part back there before dusk. We don't want anyone getting hurt now.
The soldiers are equipped with glow sticks to avoid accidental hits. In the difficult terrain, the soldiers can hardly move at night. That's why they choose good positions to detect and attack the enemy. The battlefield illumination aims to make the targets visible. Unfortunately for the trainers, the mountain guides are poorly equipped. This will become evident in the upcoming shooting. The brief lighting phases must be used consistently. With tracer ammunition, the soldiers and the trainers can better control the shooting directions. Every third shot in the magazine is tracer ammunition. The instructors simulate a strong enemy advance. The candidates must respond.
Wir stellen uns darauf ein, überschlagend auszuweichen!
Feind aus rechter Seite stärker zu. Der Rhein wird überlegen. Was ist denn das für eine Scheiße?
The instructors are not satisfied with the soldiers' response.
Komm, Munition nach vorn! Munition!
Magazin, Magazin!
Gesund, komm, das sind die Ziele.
With the existing lighting, the targets are barely visible. The cadets are firing from all barrels to elevate the bow towards the enemy. From signal pistols, additional battlefield illumination is fired towards the enemy. However, only with moderate success.
It is challenging in the dark. Very challenging, the movements. Also the firefight, if you are not night combat capable. Very challenging, especially the long target distances. In my assessment, it doesn't matter whether the enemy is superior or inferior. With the current equipment, it is not possible to approach or attack from this position.
Die Beleuchtung, so wie wir sie haben, ist absolute Grütze. Das funktioniert nicht. Ja? 200 Meter, seht ihr das? Bei dem Wind bringt nichts. Das ist auch eine dauerhafte Beleuchtung ohne Unterbrechung, wenn möglich, dass wir den Feuerkampf führen können. Und im Bereich des Ausweichens jetzt noch ein bisschen besser laufen können mit dem Feuer. Ja. Aber trotzdem aufpassen, Jan, ja. Ja, mit dem rechten Stein. Ne? Ja, ich habe ihn nicht aber quatschen, ja. Schießen. Ja. Weißt du, du schaust dann zum Joe und dann ist deine Waffe schon etwas zu weit. Ja, das war ziemlich knapp an dem vorderen Stein rechts. Ja. Ja, du kannst das nicht gleichzeitig machen. Ja. Vor allem, wenn du in der Dunkelheit durch enge Korridore schießt. Da würde ich aufpassen. Ja? Ja.
The most difficult thing in the terrain is, of course, the communication among the troops, because it is intersected terrain with many rocks where you can't see everything. So coordination has to be good. And of course, the danger of falling rocks. I believe we have seen several times that large stones have come loose, and you must, of course, descend safely. And that is our terrain as mountain guides. Yes, it was a nice and successful evening, I think. We did what the mountain infantrymen must be able to do, or where it counts. That is combat in the mountains by day and by night, in all weather conditions. We were lucky that it did not rain, because with this wind, it would have been significantly tougher.
Just now, we were able to see the enormous difficulty of the terrain at night. It is so demanding and challenging. It can hardly get any more difficult, because this is all just a pile of debris and rocks. Also very steep, and the movement is very complicated as well. Furthermore, it is absolutely uneven. We also have a lot of German parts, which seem to be overwhelmed pretty quickly. This has also led to a lot of mistakes within the squads. And our foreign comrades, who of course have a lot more experience, are on a completely different level. Naturally. With that being said, we are always glad when no one ends up getting hurt. In the end, I believe that ultimately the initial goal was met.
Und ich halte das ganze Ziel jetzt für diesen kurzen Aufenthalt auf diesem Hochgebirgsübungsschießplatz da voll erfüllt.
Trainer Schubert is aware of the shortcomings but remains optimistic. The soldiers have done what they could. Whether it would have been enough in real combat remains uncertain. The combat training is temporarily concluded for the candidates. Mentally, many are already thinking about the next phase. The next section is the major examination stay in the Sella group in Italy. With its steep rock walls, a very special climbing area in Europe. Here, the soldiers face rapid succession. Every day, exams are on the schedule. Each one could mean failure in this course. Then the last 5 months of toil and effort would have been in vain. The pressure on the candidates is palpable. They must internalize and be able to recall all the learned content from the past months effortlessly. Training leader Grillhosel will not give anyone any breaks.
Staying in the Dolomites almost at the end of the course is something really special. The Dolomites absolutely exposed walls, walls up to 800 meters. not well secured. What is demanded from the course participant? They must accurately navigate the route. They must find the route. That is exposed climbing, absolutely exposed climbing, with relatively sparse protections. So he has to be very proactive. And I always say here in the Dolomites, this is climbing in its purest, most original form. A truly honest job that needs to be done here. And when we start climbing the walls, it's always an adventure. And climbing must be an adventure, because pleasure climbing is no longer an adventure, it's a sport. But here, this is real climbing. This is Alpine.
But one must be prepared for these adventures. Many of the soldiers have never climbed in this area before. Sergeant Wagner has. He gives his comrades valuable tips for the upcoming challenges. Above all, for their safety. The Sella is a dangerous mountain range. Due to the unique composition of the rock, special climbing techniques must be used here. Instructor Rieger watches closely. They are responsible for the soldiers. Fall training is also part of the training. How can I fall without getting hurt? An uncomfortable situation, just letting yourself fall from 50 meters high. Rieger is not satisfied.
What I really don't like about the training is the rope guidance to the deflector, where the fall wasn't. The rope just runs over the edges, way too high, way too long until they get there. But it doesn't have to be like that. It's difficult. We talked about it yesterday already. It's just a different Alpine character compared to ours with the belay stations. It just takes time for them to understand that it's dangerous. I mean, not always. Just because there's a bolt doesn't mean it's safe. And that's mostly not the case. And you just want to get it right. I mean, if you go climbing with a comrade or a friend, then you have it under control. But if you go with some guided ones, then you cannot always rely on everything going as you imagine. And then, quickly, the whole thing can become quite dangerous.
In the evening, the candidates prepare their tours for the next day or study for the written exams. During exam stays, there is not a free minute. The next morning, the exam tours start. Sergeant Major Bloß must prove today that he is fit to be an Army mountain guide.
Zur Ausrüstung. Gurtvertreter dabei. Expressen. Helm. Standplatzschwingen. Keile Friends. Sonnenbrille. Creme haben wir dabei. Du hast zusätzlich noch Biwaksack dabei. Sepp hat die Bergführerapotheke dabei. Kletterschuhe hat jeder dabei. Ich auch? Ja, ich auch. Gut, alles klar. Und wenn die soweit fertig sind, dann laufen wir los Richtung Einstieg. Okay. Erstmal Richtung Mariaflur.
Rock climbing in the Dolomites, challenging climbs, intense exam stress for the course participants. The Dolomites are always something special for us trainers too. Many exams, clearly, but also climbing here. Maximum exposure while climbing, not so well secured, a lot of initiative required. Route finding is required. This is about pure climbing.
Today, Bloß had to safely lead 3 comrades and instructor Rieger through the mountains. In a mountain range he has never been to before. Just keeping one's orientation is a very difficult task. He must not allow any safety errors. This would result in immediate failure. The tension in Bloß is palpable.
Every tour has its challenges, and each one is different.
He must lead and find the right route. Trainer Rieger is aware of the difficulties.
If he does it right when he's building some kind of path for himself, he won't get hurt. And then it depends on the route planning. That's a bit different than we have in granite, where the lines are relatively clear. You have to look a bit more closely, get a feel for it. Where you go and where it goes next. So it's my first time in the Dolomites, and I'm climbing here for the first time too. The Dolomites are really something special. You look around and out of nowhere, these huge rock formations just appear. It's truly impressive.
But he must not let himself be distracted by this impressive backdrop. He needs to concentrate on securing the ropes for his fellow climbers coming after him. The instructors do not forgive any wrong knots.
Scheiße, unten habe ich keine Bandschlinge eingekriegt, habe ich Seilreibung gehabt ohne Ende.
Schau mal dazu. Okay, völlig Schlinge ist da ausmarschiert. Das ist unten eigentlich alles gut gekippt.
Several hundred meters above the ground, the soldiers hang on vertical rock walls. Every single step must be carefully considered. In this terrain, no mistakes can be made. Blows must always keep searching for the right route.
Wo gehen wir hin? Darauf, rechts, zu dem Kamin, zu den gelben. Schau her, zu dem Riss.
When climbing, you can't just try a route. If you run out of strength in this terrain, it can end fatally. Blows pulls himself up the rock walls with his fingertips. Instructor Rieger increases the pressure.
Schwierig bloß. Ist schwierig. Warum geht's dann nicht schneller?
Bloss stays calm. That's what the trainers want to see. In the mountains, haste is rarely a good advice. Once he arrived, the next surprise is already waiting for him.
Bloss is currently preparing the summit briefing. This is also part of the mountain guide course, or generally for the military, when he leads people up or moves forces, so that he can then brief them accordingly on the map. What you see there, what peaks those are, where we are personally located. You see what the standard is. For the average person, it's quite challenging, because if you're in the area for the first time and then get a 50,000 map, since the service is no longer available, then it is quite demanding because some mountains are no longer included, and that means intensive preparation. In the internet age, it is not such a big problem to find out and then use the compass bearing to locate the peaks, to write it down and then announce it accordingly. But it is still quite demanding because he does not know the peaks either. That quickly becomes apparent whether he has prepared well or not. They are not doing it for the first time.
Beginnt normalerweise wie immer im Norden. Norden kann man jetzt kaum was sehen, sondern unseren Gipfel Chivazes, entschuldigt meine italienische Aussprache, mit 2831 eigener Standort. Wir befinden uns auf dem Gamsband, kurz davor auf Höhe 2400. Dann gehen wir weiter Richtung Südost. Dort sieht man den Gletscher ganz eindeutig. Das ist Marmolada-Gletscher. Der höchste Punkt, also wenn man vom Schneefeld aus nach oben betrachtet, ist es der Ponte Peña mit 3343, jetzt derzeit nicht einsehbar, ist in Wolken drin. Und dann von Ponte Peña sieht man noch diesen V, also Schnitt geht weiter
Den Grat entlang auf dem Gipfel, jetzt auch derzeit in Wolken, der Karwendel mit 2310, circa 9000 entfernt.
Wie?
9000.
Ja, wie hoch?
2310.
Also wir stehen auf 2,5, der ist in die Wolken, weil er höher ist und der ist trotzdem 1000 Meter tiefer.
3210.
2210 habe ich gesagt.
Na? Ja, zweimal gesagt, oder? Ja, gestimmt habe ich. 3210.
Briefings are not his strength. However, the trainers view his other performances more positively.
For Blows, I can only say he performs relatively smoothly, not very conspicuous, and does his job.
Eine Prüfung wieder näher am Bergführer.
Does instructor Rieger see it the same way? In the evening, the tour will be directly discussed and evaluated.
All in all, I've thought about it for a long time now. So you get a 3 from me. But there wasn't much room for downgrading anymore.
Okay, passt. Ich hoff's. Mir ist es eigentlich wurscht, ob du zufrieden bist oder nicht. Wenn es nicht langt, dann langt's nicht.
Yes, a 3. I am pretty satisfied with the result. 3 is green. Green is good, and good is almost a 1. For the first round, he did well. Let's see. There will certainly be 1 or 2 difficult tours, but if they keep it up like this, it'll be fine. I believe we'll come back home safe and sound, and that'll be great. It's not always a given down there.
The instructors are satisfied, but the soldiers are far from having their day off. They have to study again because written exams are scheduled for today. Not exactly popular among the guys, Grillhosel's tests are feared.
So we start here in the cella with the written and oral exams. We do them towards the end of the course because we have all the classes. And I'll take 2 written exams. One of them is on the basic principles of mountain training. It's about orientation questions, materials science, geology, glaciology, all those topics. Then with me, there's a pure weather test. Only questions about meteorology are asked. I conduct an oral exam. An oral exam is basically like a colloquium. The person comes to me and I have a professional conversation with them for a quarter of an hour.
Back to school days. Instructor Grillhosel is supervising. Schumacher and his comrades get no break.
Yes, I think the program is tough for the course participants and the mood is non-negotiable. They have to go through this now. They have to face an exam situation every day and they have to get through it. I think they will be glad when it's over. I don't think they can really enjoy it here.
Enjoyment is really not intended in this course, even though the climbing areas have much to offer. After the written exams, they go directly to the next test tour. Schumacher is up today. He is under great pressure after his failed rescue from the crevasse in Chamonix.
Due to the weather conditions this morning, the bad ones, we will not do the 5-finger traverse now. One is always excited before the test, I think. Generally, you always have to wait and see what happens. You can plan as much as you want at the table, but terrain will reveal itself later, and then we have to see which leadership technique and tactics need to be applied there. I think the most important thing is not to let yourself get worked up, even if things don't go so well sometimes. But you can't plan everything, and that's why you have to wait.
With Schumacher, it's like this. He is not doing very well at the moment. He received a rather poor grade in mountain rescue in Chamonix. Unfortunately, during the first guided tour in Sella, he also made a few mistakes. So now he definitely needs to step on the gas and show performance here. We know he can do it. He just needs to execute when tested. So he really needs to step on it now.
But that is often hard for Schumacher. He is an extremely ambitious soldier who always wants to perform well. Yet sometimes he cannot control his patience and emotions. He must learn this if he wants to become an army mountain guide. Today, he must calmly lead his comrades to the summit. Instructor Rieger will be watching closely to see if he has it under control.
Okay. Wir steigen hier in den Bereich ein. Wir werden uns hier entlang der Stufen, die am markant drin sind, hier hoch, dann links rüber bewegen und hoch bis zum Wandel gehen. Gut, Sepp, kommst du hier rüber?
I have to say, most of them are still pretty inexperienced when it comes to alpine climbing. They have definitely done some satisfactory things, but there's a long way to go. Yes, it starts now. The whole life is a learning process. You give them the tools, you can let them loose on humanity, and they have to keep at it, and then it will work.
Schumacher got a difficult tour. The pointed and sharp-edged rocks are very challenging. Any misstep can lead to serious injuries or even death.
Falling in this terrain, you probably see that in movies. That's just not it. You only do that once.
Schumacher therefore tries to proceed even more focused, but things are not going smoothly. He appears frantic and insecure. A military mountain guide must always convey a sense of security to his comrades. He safely leads his comrades to the summit, but Instructor Rieger is not satisfied. He demands a lot, but he also knows that dangerous situations require a lot. Schumacher himself is not satisfied with his performance. Will it be enough to pass?
Yes, it's really quite a different kind of climbing. In terms of difficulty, it's already something very exposed. Few protection options. But that's just how it is. Can't really do anything about it.
All in all, what he did cannot really be done any faster, of course. The problem is that he underestimated the whole thing a bit. As of now, it is rated as 3, even a 4-. There are definitely easier ways to get a 3. He still needs to learn to get rid of his nervousness, because I don't like it either. Saying he's a little nervous is an understatement. He's always a bit on edge, but today he was particularly on edge. We'll see if he can manage it or not.
I'm not entirely satisfied. I made a few mistakes, silly mistakes, easy mistakes. But that's how it is sometimes in life. Not everything can always go smoothly.
His grading turned out accordingly. Of course, he then looked a bit gloomy, but I mean, he has to be able to handle it. After all, he is an adult. That's just how it is. Until we do better next time, and he then will get a better grade again. And they have to go through it. I think they're glad when it's over here. I don't think they can really enjoy it here. But that's how it is. It's coming to an end, and now it's being settled, and now the grades are being made. Just a normal process.
For which of the 11 soldiers it will be enough in the end will still be seen. The instructors had to give out some bad grades again this time, but they will not give up on turning the soldiers into army mountain guides. In the Karwendel Barracks in Mittenwald, Bavaria, 11 out of 18 men made it into the course. Among them is the young Staff Sergeant Slavomir Bloss, the experienced Sergeant Major Jens Wagner, and the newly minted father, Captain Peter Baumert. The ambitious Captain Jan Schumacher is also pushing through the grueling course. Training Supervisor Grillhosel welcomes the soldiers to the winter segment of the course. The ski test is scheduled.
So, this is the day we've been working towards for the last 6 weeks. Today is the technical exam as part of the DSV instructor exam. We will examine the 4 technical forms and the free descent at the Stubai Glacier. We will do the briefing when we are on site, usual procedure, picking up lift tickets at the bottom, then the last instructions and measures up on the glacier, when we start the exam, and especially where we start the exam. I can only say one thing. I wish everyone a successful day today, and I assume that everyone will do their best, so that when we return this afternoon, that we all have satisfied faces and good grades on paper. Occupy vehicles. Order. First instructor vehicle, then the training group. Mount up.
The soldiers are driving to the Stubai Valley, almost 70 kilometers away. Already during the entrance exam, the participants revealed significant weaknesses in skiing.
There's quite a bit of tension. You can feel that today. It's the decisive day with the technical forms and the free descent. But that's also a good thing. A certain level of tension during a test is always fine. Let's see how the conditions are. It's going to be exciting now. Whether it's too hard, or maybe a bit soft today because of the snow. We'll see that when we're up there. And skiing skills, they are essential for a mountain guide when we eventually start ski touring in March and move into ski mountaineering. So we can safely descend steep slopes. A mountain guide must be able to ski. That's quite clear.
And Grillhosel wants to see that directly. Steep slopes with rocky sections are terrain for Army mountain guides. Here, the soldiers must come down safely. If they can't manage that, they have no place in the elite unit. Some have improved a lot, others not. The trainers are tough, but fair.
I think that most of them haven't driven off-road that often yet. You can just see how they adjust to the skis to the type of snow. But I'm just not overly negative. I think we'll manage it.
Will Grillhosel be proven right? The participants are doing their best but remain skeptical. After all, the toughest part of the exam is yet to come.
I think it's a 50-50, partly positive, partly negative. Personally, I didn't feel like I drove all that well, but I feel like some rides went quite good for me. I hope it's enough. My feelings are mixed for sure. I hope that it was enough. Now we have to focus on the last descent. And if that goes well too, then we will have successfully ended the day. Hopefully. Well, I have to say, I do have a bit of a queasy feeling in my stomach. Although an exam situation is always an uncomfortable thing, you drive a bit more tensely, a bit more nervously than when you drive freely. And you probably remain a bit below your potential. You also want to avoid a crash and so on.
But it will be intense. A timed ski race, measured against the instructor's time.
The external conditions are great. We have really good weather. The slope is perfectly prepared. The course has just been set. We tried to create a relatively fair course, but it is still challenging. Currently, it's course inspection. And then it starts with 2 scoring runs for the training participants. I don't think the nervousness can increase much more than it is now. They are really at their limit. 6 weeks of ski training, and today is the final exam day. And it really has to work out. I don't think an increase is possible anymore. I am pretty nervous, I have to say. But we just have to make the best of it.
Now there's only one thing that matters: getting down the slope as quickly as possible. Bloss reached the finish line. Will this run be enough? Schumacher is up next. Wagner is considered one of the fastest. He was in the national team of Nordic combined athletes. The trainers expect a top time from him. Wagner races down the slope. He will make a good time, but will it be enough for the instructor's time?
That's it for the DSV instructor. Done, finished, 6 weeks through. You don't need to ask me now about the times and grades. I just phoned the times into the barracks. Shubi is calculating it. The grades will be ready by the time we arrive at the barracks. I am very curious about the result, because nothing has been revealed yet. For some, it might get a bit tighter, and they will probably be quite glad when it's finally over.
Insgesamt hat sie gepasst. War gut. Super, gratuliere. Danke. Fragen?
Keine Fragen.
Gut, dann schicken wir den nächsten rein. Aber das brauchen wir nicht diskutieren, weil es war so, wie es war und es hat gepasst und Sie haben es bestanden und Gratulation und Ende. Okay?
Dann machen wir das.
You have the best practical grade, the best athletic grade, and the best technical grade. It was actually clear from the beginning that it would end well. Practical grades are fine. Everything looks good.
Denkt mal, dass wir auf dieser Leistung hier jetzt gut aufbauen können.
Auf jeden Fall.
Sind Sie jetzt froh?
Da fällt mir schon ein Last von den Schultern, muss ich ganz ehrlich sagen. Hat mir ein paar graue Haare gekostet, dieser Instructor.
Das wissen wir.
Das weiß ich auch. Super. Freut mich. Voll.
Now we can put the normal skis in the basement and take out the cross-country skis. Now a new chapter is opened in winter.
The new chapter is called Ski High Tours. But first, the soldiers will have to learn how to rescue people buried in an avalanche. The greatest helper in this is a search dog for people.
Today we are here at the Zugspitze Plateau at nearly 3,000 meters altitude. We are currently in Mountain Rescue Week. This means we conduct both improvised and planned winter mountain rescue operations. Today the focus is on planned avalanche rescue. We have a handler from Mountain Rescue Bavaria with us, and we will now practice searching for avalanche victims with an avalanche dog in the morning, so that the course participants simply know what is important when working with avalanche dogs. Also in this section, it is now important for the course participants not to make any mistakes on the avalanche field. Because when the dog is on the avalanche field, it is a very sensitive animal. And certain things need to be considered to ensure that everything fits, so that the dog's sense of smell is not disturbed.
One of the soldiers simulates being injured and lets himself be buried under nearly 1.5 meters of dense snow. Not a risk-free task.
Spending around 2 to 3 hours in there is actually normal. So make sure people can handle it and choose carefully who to put in there, because it can quickly become a problem.
A 2-square-meter hole under the snow. A deadly trap if something goes wrong. The soldiers shovel the hole closed again and receive another briefing from the dog handler. He explains to the soldiers that they have to be very careful when working with the dog and must first let the dog onto the avalanche field alone. Any contamination with scents would make the work more difficult for the dog. The detection dog begins the search. Quickly, it discovers a trail and signals by digging that there must be someone buried here. The soldiers eagerly watch the dog's reaction. First, a so-called probe, a thin rod, is carefully poked through the snow cover to feel if there is indeed someone lying beneath the snow cover. When the buried person is located, it is important to dig quickly but carefully. Being hit by an avalanche means a massive weight on the victim's body. Bone fractures are the norm.
The soldier under the snow cover will soon be relieved.
The task is successfully completed for the sniffer dog, but the injured person is not rescued yet. Now the real work of the Army Mountain Guides begins. Instructor Rieger explains what needs to be done now.
What do we do first? Check his breathing. Does he have a breathing barrier or not? The dangerous thing about an avalanche, when you're caught in it, for us skiers and ski tourers, it's usually snow slab avalanches. It's simply the mechanical injury. That means when the avalanche goes off, then I slide with the avalanche, get swept along, and I might hit rocks, trees, and obstacles, causing mechanical injuries like a broken neck, arm, or whatever. When the avalanche comes to a stop, if I'm still alive, then the second big step is, so to speak, which is important, that I have an air pocket, so that I don't, in a manner of speaking, suffocate. Under 35 minutes or no breathing cavity, start resuscitation immediately. If it's over 35 minutes, we make sure to get a doctor. If in doubt, we resuscitate.
Once the injured person is treated and stable, it is important to get him off the mountain quickly and safely. In heavy snowfall, rescue by helicopter is impossible, so the soldiers need to build a stretcher and transport the injured person through deep snow and steep slopes. A real challenge. Quickly but carefully, they transport the injured person away. The soldiers have successfully completed this part of the training. What they learned is important. The next phase of training will introduce the participants to one of the greatest dangers in the mountains. In the snowy peaks of the German Alps, they will have to trigger avalanches using explosives. The soldiers are brought to their starting point, a snow-covered hut high up in the mountains, by helicopter. In winter, it is nearly the only way to transport people and materials to such heights.
We are here in the Wetterstein Mountains at the Stulpenhütte at 1,635 meters. This week we are doing the section on jumping from snowfields. And today, we are bringing people into the snowfields by helicopter. They will be lowered with a winch, and we will use PTN or Ladin explosives to create an avalanche release. The purpose and intent of this whole story is that the Army Mountain Guide knows in the future and is able to blast snowfields. This is important for tactical deployment. For example, if I have to move a troop from point A to point B, the route passes through an avalanche-prone area, and the entire stretch needs to be cleared with explosions so that I can use this space tactically.
The soldiers prepare the explosives. Several kilograms are needed for one charge. Master Sergeant Wagner carefully assembles the explosive device.
I'm preparing a throw charge here. We have basically placed about 5 kilos of Latin explosive here. It's used to apply it onto the snowfield with the throw charge so that it doesn't roll away and explodes directly on the snowfield. I will be dropped from the helicopter onto the snowfield, where it, dropped off by the wind, is placed directly on the snowfield. The entire snow slender over there we will blow up later, or at least try to. And then simply to the right, the individual snowfields, which are also interspersed with rocks downwards. There we will also try to blow them out and then lower the individual people down.
The soldiers are briefly instructed at the helicopter before they set off. In flight maneuvers, special caution is always advised.
We in the military do this so that we can make terrain accessible in the high mountains in winter. That means, for example, in Afghanistan, some path from A to B is avalanche prone, I have to go there with a reconnaissance team, with a company, but it's avalanche prone. Then the Army mountain guide is deployed, is brought there, he assesses the situation, and then he must be able to work with the machine. We already trained this in the summer, so he must be capable of working with the helicopter, directing the helicopter, working with the winch. And then comes the explosives. It's not quite so pleasant to fly with explosives and then hang on a winch with all the explosives. But the course participants will do that today.
The pilots start the 1,400 horsepower machine and begin the approach to the 2,600-meter high peak. At icy temperatures, the soldiers fly with open doors towards the intended demolition targets. Bloss is the first one who has to detonate today. The communication between him and the pilot is very important. The onboard mixer will lower him with the winch and ensure that he safely returns on board. With 5 kilograms of explosives under his arm, Bloss gets ready to rappel down. Almost 40 meters above the snowfield, the pilot holds the helicopter as steady as possible. Bloss carefully lowers himself down. Always be mindful of helicopters, mountains, and of course the explosives. He must avoid starting to spin due to the downdrafts. Once at the bottom, the task is to place the explosive beak. Not an easy task on the slippery snowfield and with the strong downdraft from the rotors. The charge is placed and detonated. The explosion will occur in 4 minutes. Bloss gives the signal to ascend. The pilot tries to leave the danger zone as quickly as possible, regardless of whether Bloss is already in the machine or not. But blasting is only moderately successful. Only small snow slabs detach from the mountain. Not to be underestimated, even these amounts can kill people. The next participant is up. It will be one after another. As long as there is flying weather, flights will continue. A challenge for both humans and machines. The helicopter has been in use for over 40 years. Everyone must concentrate on their work. The smallest mistakes are not allowed in such exercises. The same procedure. Approach. Rappel. Place the load. Leave the danger zone as quickly as possible. The soldier is still hanging far below the machine when the pilot already starts at full throttle. This time the detonation has more effect. Hundreds of tons of snow rush down the slopes at speeds of up to 200 kilometers per hour. A destructive force for anything and anyone in its path. The following detonations are also successful. The triggered avalanches clearly demonstrate the danger posed by avalanches and the destructive power they contain. The soldiers are impressed. They face this danger almost daily in their job as elite soldiers.
We blew up 100 kilograms today, blasted the whole mountain. I think we also got quite a bit out today. Some got more, others less, depending on the snow thickness and terrain. But you think the snow flanks, quite a bit has already gone away, with some other risky areas, from 50 to 80 meters wide. I think that the combination of flying helicopters and carrying a lot of explosives might have caused some uneasy feelings. But that's what I think, mainly. Everyone particularly enjoyed lowering themselves down, hanging 20 meters beneath the helicopter on the winch, in a huge snowfield, snow slab, and securing everything there. That was really nice. Yes, so the cheerfulness that has now bloomed a little here is, of course, between reaching goal 1. The winter part consists of these 2 hurdles. One was the DSV instructor. The second part will start again in 2 weeks, and I think it'll intensify the tension, nervousness, but also the difficulty and uncertainty because terrain, weather, and visibility conditions are things you can't control. Overall, I liked what the course participants did. We also did everything correctly. The blasting day is now over. What was important? Quite simply, we had to combine, carry out training demolitions, and work with the helicopter, and assess the training on avalanche danger. When I combine the components, then I am able to detonate snowfields. That worked very well today.
The last and also hardest test day is still to come. In Andermatt, Switzerland, the task is to apply everything learned in ski mountaineering and to lead one's comrades safely through the snowy mountains. Here, any of the soldiers can also fail.
The main problem in winter is that the mainstay is the ski mountaineering stay, and it lasts for 3 weeks. And everything is tested there. And this ski high-altitude tour stay is not sometime in the summer, and the appointment as a mountain guide is sometime next year. But this stay is shortly before the HBF appointment. That means nerves are usually frayed, because it's simply about will I be appointed or not? And the pressure is already high. Physically, Andermatt is very demanding due to the ski tours we do, and then also mentally with all the exams, the assessments, written tests, and so on. I believe that the stay in Andermatt will be the hardest for the course participants.
Let's get to the guided tour today, the 26th of March, on the Kristallina. We just showed it at 2,911.7.
Schumacher must prove today that he is suitable to be a mountain leader in the army.
Actually, I'm not really nervous right now. I'm well prepared. It will definitely be a nice tour. Let's see what comes of it.
The conditions for Schumacher and his comrades are ideal. In good weather, he leads his troop through the deep snow. He has chosen an exhausting route, but Schumacher is fit and wants to prove to the instructors that he is ready to become an army mountain guide. Instructor Rieger repeatedly includes intermediate tests.
Guess he's building an igloo now. We're doing a small block test right now because we have quite a lot of new snow and quite a bit of compacted one too. And we haven't really been in that area yet. And he's basically doing a cystiatic snow diagnosis. That means he checks if there are any weak layers inside this block that we can trigger.
Das bedeutet für mich im weiteren Vorgehen, dass ich auf jeden Fall einen leicht gebundenen Schnee habe, aber eher Tendenz auch noch zu weich. Es ist aber trotzdem mit einer Schneebrettlawine zu rechnen.
Nein, wir bauen doch kein Iglo. Wir gehen jetzt doch weiter.
Schumacher has learned a lot in recent months and has his ambition under control. He makes the right decisions and continually motivates his comrades on the way to the summit. Instructor Rieger can be very satisfied with him. The first interim goal is almost reached.
All right, since we have good weather luck today and want to take advantage of it, and also want to gain a few more meters in altitude, we are now moving on to the next summit on the Piano, more precisely known as Ponzione Valpiana, at an elevation of 2,660 meters. We are currently at an elevation of 2,458 meters.
Schumacher is motivated.
With Captain Schumacher, it's like this. He is an incredibly ambitious course participant. However, it must be said that it is a healthy ambition, and Jan Schumacher is truly wholeheartedly involved.
The last few meters to the summit. Mobilize all your energy reserves once more.
Okay, so listen up. We've reached our first intermediate destination, the Piano Summit. From here on out, we'll be shown the terrain, descend into the valley, and traverse out.
Danke, Sepp.
Ich werde aber zufahren, wenn es fällt, doch noch als Erster.
Schumacher has delivered an almost perfect leadership tour. Instructor Rieger is satisfied. Such descents are the reward for the hardships of the last 8 months. Schumacher has passed his final exam. He is close to being admitted to the elite unit. However, he does not yet feel euphoria.
I have to say, it was really a nice tour today. At the start, unexpectedly sunny. Now, at the end, the weather is a bit worse. I actually wanted it to clear up by noon. The tour itself was nice at the beginning this morning with great snow conditions. It was really deep to make tracks today. On the descent, it wasn't as nice at the bottom.
Back at the barracks, the evaluation with Instructor Rieger follows immediately. For Baumert, on the other hand, it is important to prepare the tour for tomorrow.
Let's proceed to the briefing for tomorrow. We have 2 summit ascents, one to the Nockberg at 2,074 meters, and the other to the Mutterlischhorn at 3,058 meters. And that's actually just the smallest part. The preparation is now, of course, continuing for me, until late in the evening, and then we'll see how tomorrow turns out.
The next morning, there is bad weather. Baumert will be challenged on his last guided tour.
Well, nervousness is usually adjusted to the situation. I try to do it more by feel. If it gets steeper, go a little slower. If it's flatter, you can cover a few meters well. That's the time you gain there. And so, you have a good feeling in the body, and you don't go too slowly on the flat and maybe start to cool down. Nervousness, yes, especially before receiving orders. You just have to gather all the information first. There isn't much time. The actual work begins afterwards, but I'm feeling all right now. I was a bit nervous the night before, but once you approach the tour now, it actually goes quite well.
In poor visibility, Baumert leads his comrades up the icy slopes. Instructor Grillhosel, however, has some surprises in store for him.
Und ich will wissen, auf der Karte gezeigt, den Ausläufer von dem Grad auf der Karte gezeigt.
Ausläufer, okay.
Und den Blaubergstock, die Ausläufer. Und als Draufgabe den Schafberg. Okay?
Okay.
Orientation is extremely important in the mountains. In dense fog, Baumert is trying to locate the points required by Grillhosel.
An independent location is right here. We're line 2,600 in this stream course at this rock nose, which we can see. That's basically the terrain here, up inside here. It's important to say, if I'm not familiar with the area, I must drive down with the GPS device, because I won't be able to get out of this huge valley. I think it's going pretty well so far. We had the climb down below, but you have to say the terrain to the exit was relatively crappy. Still very icy, south-facing, hairpin, slipped a bit. So I found my own way, away from the tracks. And finally, up to Schafberg, the weather picked up. That's why I walked a bit faster, because it got a bit colder. But in terms of orientation and the last descent, it was really good. I think the boss liked it too, and hopefully we'll have similar conditions on the north descent.
So far, Baumert's guided tour is going well. The orientation task was not easy, but he solved it despite very poor visibility. However, the weather is getting worse. Baumert must now make the right decisions.
Up there, 20 meters visibility, completely unknown terrain, extremely steep slopes. He made a quick assessment of the avalanche situation. The wind is getting worse and finds its way down right at this point here, where the junction is, where our second ascent would actually begin. Then he suggests that we go down, which is absolutely right. I consider it that it makes no sense to go further. We have another steep climb and then have to descend over the northern flank, which drops down at up to 45 degrees through rocky terrain. With the visibility, we would probably only get injured. We can see how the rocks are sticking out everywhere, and if we can't see and recognize them, we'll just leave it be. And I am glad that I have the people down here now. But we also have to say, this is really beyond the comfort zone where we are operating. But that's where we want the people to be. That's where the mountain guide has to go, and he has to keep a cool head, apply what he's learned, make the right decisions, and lead from the front. I have to say honestly, Baumert did an awesome job.
But Grillhosel still has a surprise for the soldiers. He wants to really challenge Baumert with an unexpected incident.
Following situation, lower leg fracture, is treated, stable. No flying weather due to storm. Leader, take immediate action.
Jan, kannst du kein Skifahren oder was? Tu mal Ski aus, hinlegen. Zack, Skiplaken, nichts mehr da. Kann ich nichts drauf? Ja.
Yes, the additional task will be set and must be completed. Ultimately, the leader in charge must organize it, solve this additional task, and those involved must naturally support. And yes, whether that is motivating or not, it must be completed because it contributes to the overall picture of the leadership tour.
The rescue of an injured comrade against time. Not far-fetched because in case of injuries in high mountains, it's often a matter of minutes. The soldiers have to improvise and build a means of transport. The injured person must be rescued quickly and safely. A popular additional task among the instructors. Grillhosel is a tough examiner.
Baumert, das ist Ihr Zusatzaufgabe, gell? Und die Zeit, wenn ich da drauf schaue, stimmt mich nicht zufrieden. Baumert, gib Gas. Es ist mir zu langsam. Okay, komm her.
Baumert has to hurry. If he doesn't pass the additional task, it could ruin the entire tour for him. Grillhosel's clock is ticking relentlessly.
Abholung in 5 Minuten am anderen Ende der Staumauer. Wenn er es schafft, Zeit läuft 4:58.
Grillhosel increases the pressure. He wants to see that the soldiers act correctly even in stressful situations. Once the injured person is secured, they must be transported away. At the end of an exhausting tour, an absolute challenge for Baumert and comrades. Grillhosel encourages his soldiers. Giving up is not an option. They have to give it their all one more time. They did it. Together. They are at the end of their strength, but satisfied.
Das ist gut. Baut's auseinander, packt das Zeug weg. Machen wir weiter.
Grillhosel is proud of his soldiers. They surely have learned a lot in the last 9 months.
Das sechs nicht. Voll in die Rinne rein. Scheiße. Aber Bergführergelände. Absolut. Geiler Hang. Da müssen Sie die Buben. Da schaut's auf. Fahren Sie rüber.
Baumert has chosen a spectacular slope for the final descent.
Gut, Baumert. Gut ausgesucht, Ihren. Respekt. Danke. Gut ausgesucht.
It's a bit of a pity. If the light were a bit better, one could have ridden a bit more aggressively. But it doesn't look bad overall. I would not have expected that. Untouched at the top, it was our or their gully. Yes, the activities, they really bring me joy, because you can see that the course participants work precisely. They have learned a lot. They are mature. They can become mountain guides. They're real men. That's good.
Baumert made it and can be proud of himself. It is the next day in the Swiss Alps. The last guided tour for Sergeant Major Wagner is on the schedule. He briefly goes through the tour with his comrades, and Grillhosel explains what he wants to see from him today.
Today, we have the first nice day again after a bit of fresh snowfall. The wind was very strong. We have a guided tour today. We're heading over to the Piz Centrale. It's basically the most central mountain in Europe. Almost 3,000 meters. We'll then go down to the Vernagel hut and head over to the Pizzo Ravek. In total, it amounts to approximately 2,300 meters of elevation. We have an additional option to add a loop at the end. What does it depend on? The guide must now lead properly. They need to create a track system. They must assess the avalanche situation, and then also find a good descent and apply correctly executed risk management during the descent.
Under ideal conditions, Wagner leads his comrades and instructor Grillhosel up the snowy slopes. The correct route guidance and assessment of dangers is particularly important today. The weather can be very treacherous in the mountains. An icy wind comes up. Wagner knows what that means. A massive wall of clouds is approaching the soldiers. A change in the weather that can turn a leisurely tour into an absolute challenge. Warrant Officer Wagner has to make decisions. He leads his comrades directly into the cloud wall. Is that the right decision? In dense fog, he tries to keep his bearings. It continues only without skis now. Climbing in ski boots. But Wagner finds the right route. The veteran safely leads his team to the summit. The last few meters. They have reached the top. The soldiers tap the cairn. This is meant to bring good luck and remind them of fallen mountaineers. Wagner hopes to have never to rely on this luck. He prefers to depend on his skills. It looks as though he will complete his last tour.
Auf, weg hier.
But also the performance that Jens Wagner showed was absolutely great. We were clearly beyond the comfort zone with extremely bad weather, and he did it so confidently. I'm happy for the course participant, and I'm also happy for the entire training team. Because for us, these are like the fruits of success, seeing that after 8 months, some decent people have emerged.
Wagner and his comrades have made it. 9 months of physical and mental hard labor are behind them. One of the toughest courses in the German Bundeswehr is coming to an end. The final exam stay is completed. 100,000 meters in altitude have been overcome. Now, only a few meters to the appointment lie ahead of them.
This is probably the most demanding stay in the entire Army Mountain Guide course. It is the most challenging part, and it is right before the appointment. There are incredibly many exams, and the leadership tours are extremely demanding and exhausting. Above all, they are also very long. One thing is clear. After Andermatt, their energy is gone entirely. However, the course participants have shown very good performance throughout the entire course. I am very satisfied with the achievements demonstrated here, and am now glad that the course, the entire winter portion, is slowly coming to an end. I can still remember well when I was appointed an Army Mountain Guide almost 20 years ago, and I am sure that, due to the uniqueness of this training, the length of this training, the difficulty of this training, this ceremonial act is truly enjoyed by the course participants, that they will never forget it, and that it will always remain something very special in a soldier's military life.
However, not all participants made it. Captain Baumert is one of them.
It is, of course, very unfortunate for Baumert that he cannot be appointed. He will be there tomorrow and will be the only one who does not receive this badge.
Und dann freut es mich außerordentlich, Slavo. Und die Leistung war top. Sie kommen ja nochmal raus, Sie wissen es ja schon.
Ich weiß.
Super.
Vielen Dank.
Ja, bitte.
Hiermit ernenne ich den Hauptmann Jan Schumacher zum Heeresbergführer.
Alles super, freut mich.
Herr Oberstleutnant, Hauptmann Schumacher, melde mich ab.
It's a great moment when the whole family is standing there, and you are then awarded as the top of the class. It's a truly special moment.
Hiermit ernenne ich den Stabsfeldwebel Jens Wagner zum Heeresbergführer. Jens.
Super, Jens, freut mich.
Herr Oberstleutnant, Stabsfeldwebel Wagner, melde mich ab.
We have been together for 8 months now and have gone through thick and thin. And for me, it was important, and I told the course participants right at the beginning of the course, that we must manage to become a team. And when the appointment is made, this team building must be completed, and we must part ways as a team too. And a team always somehow stays connected. We have become a team during this course. I am absolutely sure of that. I would trust them blindly. We have trained them in 8 months, so I would go with them in any weather. Day and night, on ice, on rock, in snow, I will follow them blindly.